Welcome to Demond Does the 6 questions, where the same 6 questions can tell a unique story. I am your host, Demond, father of two, husband of one, and leader of this here Demodcast. My next guest hails from the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. He's been a martial artist since age 9 and studies Japanese just so he can send Noriko Matsuda a love letter. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for your boy, MC Amazing, Evan Mays.
I love that intro, man. That was great.
How are you doing today, man?
Doing really good, man. I'm just glad to be here, to be honest. I'm just happy to be here. So I appreciate it, man. Like, this is super cool. I had a really pretty good weekend. So this is something that, like, it's kind of like a continuation of having a good weekend like this and, like, the past few days. So I'm like, yeah, man, I'm feeling really great this week.
Man, thank you for taking time out to talk to, well, we're not perfect strangers anymore, but thank you for taking time out to talk to kind of a stranger. So before we get started into the 6 questions, tell everybody where you want to be found on the internet.
It's me, your boy MC Amazing. I can be found in a couple different places. One of those is Twitter, for better or for worse. I go by MC_Amazing on Twitter. That's at MC_Amazing, MC_EMAZING. Same tag on Instagram if you're interested in that. I post on there very not regularly, but I do post on there. If you want to watch me on stream, which is something I'm probably going to start doing again very soon, it's twitch.tv/emazingxp. That's twitch.tv/emazingxp. Other than that, you can find me on the Disputed podcast. I'm on there pretty regularly. You can also find me on the Input Output podcast. I'm also on there very regularly as well. I'm kind of involved now, I guess. So it's kind of nice.
Got your fingers in a lot of pies. That's really cool, man.
You know what? It's really nice to be invited and appreciated. You know what I mean? I could be that schlub that nobody wants on their thing and be like, I don't know, man, the energy's not right. We don't need MC Amazing on here. So it's really, really good to be invited to these kind of things, to be like, people are like, hey, man, we want you on the thing. I'm like, oh, thank God.
You bring such energy and fun and with just a sprinkle of silliness that I am a huge fan of. And so anybody who is missing the opportunity to have you on their show, that's on them. You will, as far as I'm concerned, you should never have to worry about that again. It's only going to get better for you, I believe.
Wow, that is probably one of the nicest things anybody's ever said to me in my life. I appreciate that, man. Like we were saying before, what happened is that initially I didn't even start like doing streaming or podcasting or anything till around like 2018. Before then, I would say like introverted. I would never have done anything like this. Before then, my friend was like, hey, man, you should try this out. Try out streaming. I was like, yeah, why not? And then it's kind of like, you feel like you're building a persona. Like, it's like, okay, I'm going to be a lot more outgoing. But then it's like, was that a persona I was building, or was that the way I felt the whole time? Maybe I just didn't have the outlet to actually express myself like that. And before I knew it, this was me. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I've been wanting to do this. I'll be honest, I was just too scared. Now I'm not scared. So I'm all out here now, man. Like, it's great.
My wife brought this to my attention because I can be really gregarious and silly and stuff like that. But I'm not like that all the time. And my wife explained to me, it's like, well, just from my observation, you are extroverted to people who feel your spirit. Like you're good in places that feel your spirit. So when you're not in a good place and you don't feel like you're in a good place, you clam up. But when you're in a place that you feel like adds to you and you feel like you can add to it, the demand that I know that your friends know comes out because you feel like there is merit in that, and it seems like you seem to be the same, and that's a great thing in my opinion.
Yeah, those are some serious words of I didn't even think about it like that until right now. I guess it's like when you feel like the energy is right, when you feel like it's right and like it's the right space and the right atmosphere, then it's like it's easy, right, to feel at ease and like kind of just be yourself. But yeah, like if the energy's off or like things aren't like it feels not quite the way it should be, then of course, you're going to be a lot more cautious. You're not going to be as eager to like, just come out and be like, yo, hey, here I am, like I gotta test the waters a little bit first.
Mm-hmm.
So like, have you always been like, like really outspoken or outgoing and stuff like that? Or
Now that I think about it, yeah. I had a dorm radio show in college. I've been on television quite a few times, and my first foray back into the world outside of work and home was Toastmasters. So, long story short, yeah.
for me, the Disputed podcast was kind of like my Toastmasters, right? Like get to go out and then kind of like, really work on my like the whole essence of debate, but also I don't plan any of that stuff. Like the stuff that I just kind of like, it's right off the top. So I'm like, okay, I got to improvise. The only thing I know is the information. Like, I'm like, okay, I got to watch The Expanse. By the way, great show. And, you're sitting there watching The Expanse. Okay, Amos Burton does this, this, and this. And then it's kind of like, okay, well, what am I going to say about that? And I really don't know 100% until like until I'm right there. And then and there, I'm like, okay, boom, 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 I got it. But before then, I'm kind of like, I got like the essence of an idea of what I want to say later. So that was honestly speaking, it's like it all feeds into each other, right? Because then it's like, okay, the Disputed Pod makes me better at speaking, which in turn makes me better at talking at work, which in turn makes me a good employee. So it's like I don't know, it all helps, man. Like it one hand washes the other, I guess, in that regard.
And it'll help your stream channel. People will, ask you questions or comment on what's going on with that improv practice that you had with us and Undisputed. You can come off the dome. One of the biggest moments for me of Disputed was when you had Johnny Lawrence, right?
Yeah.
And right at the beginning of your side of it, you tear off your shirt. You've got your Cobra Kai shirt on. I was like, For me, that was that's part of the showmanship. So like, hopefully we've helped you improve your stream just to be able to track wild stuff like that.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed that. I was like, okay, I got to do something. I was like, oh, I got it. Like, I'm gonna just come in and then it just be like whatever way I have to do in order to get to that point where I'm ripping off the shirt. That's what I got to do. I got to like whatever I got to say to get there. I'm like, and then it's like, okay, da-da-da-da. Oh, well, you know what? What kind of mook wears a shirt like this? Rah! Like I was just like, yeah, man. And I was like, yes. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I didn't win, but I gave it my best shot. I was like, that was this. I'm like, I'm gonna give it 100%, man. That was really fun. I love that. That was great.
MC Amazing, are you ready to answer the 6 questions?
I am, sir. Actually, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Question number 1. When did you know you wanted to get into podcasting or streaming?
Back in the 2018, my buddy, he lived in California and he came to live here with me and my family for a little while. He was actually really into the Twitch streaming scene. He knew a lot of streamers. I think he had started streaming at that point, and I wasn't really doing anything. Like, I had like I was mostly working, like little side jobs and stuff like that. And he was like, you should try out streaming. So I'm like, okay, why not? I've never done anything like that before. One thing that he was talking about is like a lot of streamers start out without a face cam they don't show their faces until not way later on, but later on in their like development as a streamer, so they become comfortable, right? I was kind of intent on jumping in on the deep end, right? I was just going to jump on get on the deep end and just go, all right, I'm going to come in, I'm going to have my face cam on, and I'm gonna come up with the gimmick really quick. And so the gimmick is that I had like pins on like this little beanie I used to wear, but it was really heavy, with all the pins. So what did I do? I got a top hat like that I was wearing for Halloween, completely unrelated to that. It was just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be like, kind of like Dr. Vasilier from Princess and the Frog or something. And then I was wearing it on stream and people were like, oh man, that's a good look for you. And I was like, you know what? I bet the pins look better on this hat than they do on the beanie. And I just put all these pins on it and it looked fantastic. That was around the moment that I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I think this is something that I can do, because up to that point, I was definitely not the kind of person to want to be in front of the camera for extended periods of time. I'm like, oh man, what am I even going to talk about? Who's going to want to listen to me? When you start out streaming and stuff like that, that's basically what happens. You're going to be spending a lot of time. Like I remember people like, a lot of time you feel like you're just like talking to yourself, and sometimes you will be, but at the same time, you got to focus on having fun. Like that's the whole point, because it's you and the people that are watching you, they want to see you having fun. So if they come in and they see you just kind of being like, whatever, they're going to be like, I don't know about that. You got to be having the same amount of fun that you would have if you weren't playing like in front of people. Yeah, I mean, like I think that was around the time when I got the top hat and I had the pins on it, and I was like, okay, I think I can do this. This is something I'm really interested in. Yeah.
Where did the name MC Amazing come from?
This was back when I was in college. I had to sign up for a fighting game tournament, and my little brother, he was amazing, and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool, but I think my version sounds better. Amazing, so I think mine sounds a little bit better. I was like MC Amazing. I'm not sure why I always put the MC in front. I always thought it sounded really cool. MC Amazing. Like it always sounded really cool because, first name Evan, last name Mays, Amazing. So that was really cool. People used to refer to me while I wasn't around as the MC. They'd be like, oh yeah, man, like the MC. And it'd be like, no, who they're talking about. They're talking about MC Amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the long and short of it. That's where the MC, the Amazing came from. And then eventually, I remember one time, I'll never forget this. I was on stream and I was playing Tekken, and like somebody like was like, okay, yeah, I'll play you. And then I won a match. I won a few matches actually. And somebody else in the chat was like, wow, you really are amazing.
Yes, that's awesome.
Oh yeah. Now everybody knows.
And you're like, you damn right.
Like, was there ever any doubt?
Question number 2. What do you wish you had known when you started out?
One thing that I wish I had known is that not to focus too much on numbers, man. I really, when I started out, and this is like one of my shames, I feel like, is that I focused way too much on numbers because I wanted to prove everybody wrong. I didn't have any other jobs at that point, except for like little side stuff. Like I would do like user testing or something. That game earned me like $10, like for a test or something like that. Always been like, well, what's my follower count at? How many subscribers do I have? Stuff like that. I feel like that was something that I wish I could go back in time and say, hey, don't worry about any of that. Focus on having fun. Focus on engaging with your audience. Because when you do that, it's like you might have fun in the interim and you might engage with your audience, but there's always that pressure. You feel like this pressure kind of bearing down on you that I got to make this work. I got to make this work. One of my family members was kind of like, you need to have an exit strategy and this, that, and the third, and whatnot. Hearing that, I mean, it makes sense, but at the same time, when somebody says something like that to you, I mean, you're a few months to a year in, and they're like, you need to have an exit strategy. It's kind of like, it's very kind of demoralizing, to be honest. To me, it was a little demoralizing because it felt like, they didn't believe that I could do it. They're kind of like, you need to have a way out and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, you say that I need to have a way out, but how about tell me something that'll help me get this going? Tell me where I should go, who I should talk to, what type of stuff do you like to see? Like, don't tell me to abandon ship, right now. Like I'm like, we just left port. You know what I'm saying? We can't abandon ship now. And that always kind of bothered me a little bit. Stuff like that kind of got into my head, right? Because then I'm like, okay, I gotta succeed. It's gotta work. And then I feel like because of that, I made some decisions that weren't exactly good, that just weren't good decisions. So I would say, yeah, if I would say, hey, listen, don't worry about the numbers. Just focus on having fun. Focus on making sure that everyone else is having fun, and it'll all work out.
How has the community building for you been since you've realized that, it's, yes, it's all about the numbers when it comes to dollars and cents, but the important part is, the having the fun. Like once you kind of made that switch, like how's the community been, like community building been for you?
The community building comes a lot more, I guess, naturally. Like you feel like, I mean, people will come in and try to talk to you. Some people who come in and they're like lifers, man. They'll be stuck with you forever. And it's not even just about like people that come into your stream. I went to Reddit one time. I started playing this fighting games called DNF Duel. And then, by the way, they're patching the game. For those of you out there who play that game or played it, they are patching it and they're adding a new character. I started playing the game, and the character I play is a character called Grappler. That's his name, Grappler. The thing is like I was having an issue kind of making it to the next level of what I thought I should be at. I felt like I wasn't where I needed to be at. So I was like, hey man, is there anybody on Reddit that can help me do this? So this one guy just messaged me out of nowhere, referred to as a drummer boy. And me and him started talking. And then all of a sudden, this guy's like, we're talking like all the time. We're playing like video games together and whatnot. And he's like part of the group now. He's part of my group. It just felt like he kind of just meshed with the rest of the community so well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're focused more on having fun and making sure that everyone around you is having fun, everybody kind of like meshes together. Everybody's kind of united for a common goal, which is just like good times, making good memories and stuff like that. And I think that's the most important thing. Every once in a while, I think about, man, like all the times that I had a chance to make a really cool memory and I passed on it because I was scared or because I felt like I wasn't ready. My parents would tell me that whole thing about, oh, you're not ready or whatever. You're never going to be 100% ready for any of the like good stuff, like the great stuff that you do. You're never going to be 100% ready. So if you wait until you're 100% ready, it's not going to happen. It's just not, because you're never going to be 100% ready. So, just jumping out there and like just like I said, jumping into the deep end and just being out there, I think, and just doing the thing and then making corrections along the way is something that's really helped me, just being like, okay, I'm not going to be perfect, but I don't have to be. Realizing that I don't have to be perfect on camera, that I don't have to be perfect, like generally speaking, and just focusing on making good memories with good people is what has really elevated the way that I've built my community, I think.
You got that thing in common and y'all vibe and like, hey, let's do this.
Like for instance, you and me are talking right now, right? And this is a chance, like it's a chance meeting that didn't have to happen, right? Like my mom's like, oh, well, like she didn't talk like that, but she was like, hey, they're doing this podcast and they're looking for somebody to advocate in this debate for Black Dynamite. I'm like, bro, I love that movie, but I hadn't seen the show. So I had to watch the show. And it's like, okay, now I'm involved with this thing. And I met you and Dean. And I'm like, oh man, this is actually pretty hype. And now we all know each other. Dean knows me. You already knew Dean. We all know each other. And I'm like, okay, now like basically I made 2 new friends. And every time we have another advocacy, I'm basically making another friend. Like it's like one more friend to add to the roster. And I'm like, that's great, man. Like, it's kind of like one of those things that the internet has really brought us, because like we're a million miles apart, but it's like my mom talks about meeting my dad. It's like you meet these people and you're talking to them and it's like you've known them your whole life.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I love. That's what I live for.
Question number 3. What is your go-to order at your favorite hometown restaurant?
Normally I would say something like Ishkabibbles or something like that in Philadelphia, but I grew up here in Dallas. Like this is where this is where I spent most of my life. So this is technically my hometown. So here In Dallas, it's a completely different story. So the thing with Dallas is like the food down here is amazing. Like there's so many. The competition is fierce. If your food isn't up to par, you'll just fall to the wayside. It happens all the time. There's a particular restaurant that used to be here. It's not here anymore. I think it's like in Addison or Plano. That it was called originally it was called Tejanos, and then they changed it to Corazon de Tejas. Corazon de Tejas is a was a fantastic restaurant here in my neighborhood. And I mean, they had a really, really good taco salad. I mean, a fantastic taco salad. Not only that, but they had like secret menu items and stuff like that. But the thing that really caps it off is their margaritas. Now, I'm a huge margarita fan. I love margaritas. They sell them in like normal glasses like this big. But on Fridays during happy hour, they just come out with these big giant glasses and just be like, oh, now drink it. Now drink it. And I mean, man, if you were looking to like have a good time, you would go to Corazon de Tejas on Friday at 3:00. Because I mean, they were giving them out, man. They're just like, we don't care, man. We're trying to get rid of this. That was a place that me and my family would go. Like that was really important. Like it was a neighborhood restaurant kind of thing. And the owner would like walk around and be like, hey, how are you doing? Like you enjoying the food, stuff like that. It always felt really good to be there. The food was good. The atmosphere was great. Like they had a mariachi band and everything. And I mean, I was like, wow, man, this is great, and it's a real shame, that it went away. But I mean, it's like gone but not forgotten. So to answer the question, yeah, the taco salad at Corazon de Tejas here in Dallas, Texas, that would be like, that's my go-to meal in my hometown.
Is there a place that you go to now with your family that's not replaced it, but it's kind of, it's got to fill, something's got to fill the void. So is there a place now that you go to that fills that?
Not really, man.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Most of the time when we're talking about like you saying fill in the void, I mean, that's all it is, just us trying to like recapture that, trying to recapture Corazon de Tejas, because it was such like a big deal to us, it was like, it was a family thing. We didn't go every week, but we went pretty frequently, and we everybody get excited. We're going to Tejanos. Yeah, let's go. And it was fun, and the food was amazing. And there are plenty of places that they're good, but they're like, good Mexican restaurants and Tex-Mex and whatnot, but they're not Corazon de Tejas, man. All it is me trying to get a little taste of what it was like back when it's trying to recapture part of my childhood almost, because like that was sitting there with my my brothers, my sister, my mom and dad, dad sitting there, look like his like face is all his face is all like the muscles in his face are all relaxing because he had too much margarita and stuff, it's he's like sitting there, I'm like, oh,
Mom driving home.
yeah. You could tell, it's just like he's been like his face looks all smooth and everything. It's like, oh, yep, they got him. And it's not even like he's sitting there like, oh, I don't drink. Like my mom does pretty much all the driving, so he can always do that. So if my mom's sitting there, she's like, oh, this is too strong for me. Like I can't drink this. He'll just be like, oh, give it here. He would always do it. Are you gonna finish that? He's that guy. He's that guy. He's like, hey, are you gonna finish that? I'll take it.
That's hilarious. That's amazing. I'm trying to think if I have any other questions about that. Oh, did somebody retire? Do you know why it closed, or is it just one of those capitalism money things and just didn't make enough money?
They didn't own the lot that they had the restaurant on. CVS wanted into the neighborhood, I think, is what I heard. What I heard is that they got bought out, basically. Like that yeah. So apparently they already had one other location in Addison, which is like further north from here. But I was like, man, Addison is like at least like a 30-minute drive. I'm going to say, all right, not 30, like 20-minute drive from here. And
Mm.
it's not the same as like just driving around the corner and being like, here I am. It's just a shame, man, because like this is not like a unique story, unfortunately. You know, when people have like restaurants in their hometown and their neighborhood, like in their neighborhood, and it's just like it just disappears, you know. Here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing.
Question number 4. What are you curious about?
One thing I'm actually really curious about is like kind of some of the stuff that it's gonna sound weird, like some of the stuff my brother's into, like quantum dots and stuff like that. Like I'm a complete layman in terms of that kind of stuff. I have no idea what he's talking about sometimes when he's like, it's like that stuff goes completely over my head. But like one day I would like to get my brother to just sit me down, get a whiteboard, and I'm like, all right, man, explain this to me because I want to know. You know, being a human being, you only live for so long, and there's only so much knowledge that you're ever going to get your hands on. So I think it's kind of like, man, maybe I should just focus on like, you know, the stuff that's like nearby, but there's some things that are a little bit outside of my ken that I would really, really like to, even if it takes me a couple of years to really, really understand. That's one of those things like, you know, him talking about like nano processing and all that good stuff. I'm like, bro, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, because he'll sit down and talk to me like I know what he's talking about. I'm like, bro, why are you doing this to me? I don't know what you're talking about. Slow down.
Something that has helped me, I don't want to say disguise my ignorance because if I don't know something, I don't know. But something that's helped me with conversations with people that I seemingly have nothing in common with is like with something like what you're talking about with your brother. And if they start explaining to me in jargon, I'll stop them. It's like, okay, look, I want to know what you're talking about. Explain it to me like I'm 8.
Oh yeah.
Explain it to me like I'm a small child, and I will ask the questions I need to ask as we go. And you'll find out if that person really knows what they're talking about. Because if you can talk about what your expertise to somebody who has no idea and no frame of reference of what you're talking about, and you can explain it to them, you really know what you're talking about. And so for me, I'm a massage therapist, so sometimes people will ask me about, well, why does my body do this, and why do you find certain points, and I have to explain to them. It's like, well, because you haven't, as an example, a lot of people work in computers, and we all have phones and cars and stuff like that. So everything is in front of us. So a lot of people's shoulders roll forward, and their arms kind of turn in. But they'll have upper neck and back pain, and it's like, well, why did I have that? It's like, well, you have a front to back imbalance. You have a dominant hand, a dominant eye, a dominant foot. I played soccer, so I always explain that one, right? So if you have you have dominant sides. So if you have a dominant left side, dominant right side, you also have a dominant front side, dominant back side. So most people, their front side is more dominant. The muscles they can see in the mirror are more dominant over the ones that they can't see, and that's why they have some of those issues. So
wow.
So when you get a chance to talk to him about it, please record it because I would love to hear some of it. Like, ask him to explain to you like you're 8, and he's your brother. He'll do that. He'll do that for you,
right,
and you'll have a better understanding of it, and also have a better jumping off points to either A, ask questions, or B, do your own research.
So. Right. Yeah, that's a good. That's a really good point. I didn't really think about that. Like just being like, hey man, just explain it to me. Like you were like, yeah, like I'm a small, like I'm 8, like I'm a small child, because then like they feel like, okay, I'm gonna break it down to like the basic building blocks. So then we can build your foundation and then really get into the nitty gritty later on, which is, yeah, that's some good advice there, Damon.
Well, thank you. Well, and that's how we learn anything, Like that's how we learn anything. We didn't, if I don't know if there are any calculus people out there, but you don't learn calculus my daughter's in the 3rd grade. You don't learn calculus she's in 4th grade. You don't learn calculus like in 3rd or 4th grade. You learn addition, multiplication, and then everything builds on itself, builds on it. And then you get to, if you decide to go that far, to calculus or whatever. Like it's the same thing with everything else. But we as adults, I'm just as guilty as anybody else. We as adults forget that we don't want, sometimes we don't want to be beginners. Like, no, I want to jump in the deep end. I'm an adult. I can figure this out. Like, no, nah, man. just do it like you teach your kids.
100%. That's exactly what I was about to say. Like, as an adult, you feel like, okay, I can just like run right into this. You feel like, oh, I should be able to just learn this, and like, no problem, it's whatever. And then you kind of get that reality check, like, oh, wait, no, I got to start all the way from the beginning on this one. Like, I have to start from square one. Otherwise, the one thing you don't want is gaps in your knowledge, right? Is when when you're trying to do something and it's like, oh, geez, I don't know how to do this because I and this is like something that's like a basic thing, but you jumped all the way to the advanced stuff and you're like, you got gaps in your knowledge on like your basic foundation about like basic stuff. So what happens? The whole thing crumbles. That's a good point. As an adult, we kind of like overestimate ourselves, and it's like, there's nothing wrong with like saying like, hey, you know what? I just got to like start from zero, just start from zero and go from there. And really give myself the chance. That's what I think another issue we have as adults is like, people don't give themselves the space to fail.
Yes.
We spend we're like, okay, I'm supposed to be good at something. I have to be good at this, and we really, really punish ourselves for not being good. Like during the first couple of like attempts, like the first 3-4 attempts, it's like, why am I not good at this? Why am I not good at this? And it's like, yo, like, realize that you're learning a new skill. You're learning something new, that it's not going to be easy when you're starting out. Like, that's the whole point. Like, it's not supposed to be easy. It's so you can really, I think, gain an appreciation for what you're learning, so you look back and then somebody else asks you a question later on. You're like, I remember that. I remember starting out. I remember how tough it was. Let me explain it to you how I learned. And then the cycle begins anew.
And something I learned, like when teaching other people, things that I've learned over the years, is while you're teaching someone else, you will have a different angle and appreciation, and maybe you'll add another wrinkle to your knowledge while you're talking to somebody else about it. It's like, oh, I never thought about this before. I will get a deeper understanding of something I quote unquote already know. So so going back to teach, you learn just as much, if not more than them. And then back to the thing with failure. And I just got this fairly recently. And watching my kids grow up, is school does not, at least the way that at least the schooling that I received, it punishes you for not knowing instead of going back. Like in my daughter's class, they actually, they'll take the test and then they'll go over it, and then sometimes they'll retake it because the teacher, she's a really good teacher. I really like her a lot. I can't think of her name right now. She probably won't listen to this anyway. But she's really good about going back and helping the kids understand what they missed, why they missed it, what's going on, and making sure that they get it, because it doesn't matter if you get it right or wrong. It matters that you keep improving and keep adding onto your knowledge base, which is what school is supposed to be for. Right. You know what I mean? And so growing up in the schools I went to, and the teachers were doing the best they could, and they did what they know. I realized that, and it's a personal thing for me, is like, I don't want to fail. I don't want to get it wrong. I feel bad because I get it wrong. And what does that make me as a person? Nothing. It makes you human. But we forget that.
Yeah, 100%. Like, we do forget that. And it's like, you get so focused on the grade, so focused on the letters, the A, the B, the C. And people are like, you have to get good grades and stuff. But what exactly is going on? If you're not getting a good grade, what is happening here? It's not necessarily like, oh, you're stupid or something like that. It's like, hey, there's a disconnect somewhere that, that maybe like the material's not clicking. Maybe this particular method of teaching isn't working, or maybe they just need like somebody to say, hey, read this paragraph again and you'll be okay. Just like, I remember when I was younger, it was like all I cared, like, it's like, oh man, I didn't get a good grade. But nobody ever taught me how to like look past the grade, the letter grade, and look towards the meaning, what the meaning of that is. What does this mean? Like there were times where I'll be honest, I didn't do the work. Sometimes I didn't do the work, but sometimes I didn't do the work because I was afraid of failing, so I didn't do anything. You know, I was just like I was paralyzed. I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. And you get a 0, you know, and it's kind of like, well, why didn't you do that thing? It's like and you know, come up with like some lame excuse or whatever. It's like, but what it comes down to is I was afraid. I was afraid of failure, so I didn't do anything.
Kind of goes back to question number 2 when you were talking about you were more concerned with the numbers instead of having fun.
Yeah,
Where, with learning, in school, we are more concerned with the letters instead of learning. Message.
yeah, yeah, right. Classic.
Question number 5. What should I ask you that I didn't know enough to ask?
That's a very interesting question, you know. So here's an interesting look. I look back on this, and I've told this story a couple of times, and it's always been really interesting to me. So this was a couple of years ago, before we were all put under the boot of COVID-19. This was the year of 2019, and I just started going to tournaments and conventions. I went to basically most of the conventions that I've gone to in my life. I went to in that year. I went to Texas Showdown. I went to QuakeCon. I went to DreamHack Dallas. NEC 2019. I went to Defend the North that year. But we're going to focus on NEC right now. So NEC is a tournament. It was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And what happened is that when I was trying to get set up to go there, I was like, oh man, like I'm trying to make sure everything's all squared away. My brother, one of my brothers lives up in Philadelphia. He has friends up there. He says, hey man, I got a buddy. His name's Darnell. You know, I wish I could contact him, but I know that he's going to be going to another tournament, So I don't know if you guys will be able to hook up. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. So go to NEC. I'm having a great time, chilling, whatnot. So I met this guy. His name, man, I don't know what his real name is, but man, I can't even remember his tag right now. He's a really cool guy though. I'll have to look it up, but I met him through the friend that I went to the NEC with, Tempest, my buddy Tempest. I met this guy through him. I was walking down the hallway. This was in the hotel where we were all staying at. And the dude that I met, he walks into this room. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna be a little bit more. I'm like, this is like the year I'm getting more outgoing. I'm talking to people. So I'm like, I'm gonna go knock on that door. So like, boom, 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 and so this dude comes in and he comes out and he looks at me and he's like, hello? And I'm like, yeah, hey man, I saw one of my new friends walk in here. It's like, what are you guys doing in here? He's like, playing video games. I'm like, oh, okay. Playing Tekken? He's like, yeah. I'm like, can I play? And he's like, and then like, there was like another dude that I knew in there. He's like, oh yeah, I know that guy, let him in. So they let me in, we're playing Tekken. I got beaten up for like a couple hours. It was cool. So I left, right? Day ends. The very next day, I get a friend request on Facebook, and it's from Darnell. I can't see the dude's face on there, but I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna accept a friend request. I'm standing there, and the dude that answered the door yesterday walks up to me. He's like, Evan Mays, and I was like, do we know each other? And he's like, I'm Darnell. And I'm like, I'm Adam's friend. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Are you serious? I'm like, bro, that was like something out of a sitcom. I mean, like, they say like truth is stranger than fiction. I was like, wow, that is crazy. I had no idea. So yeah, we've been friends since then, and we both tell that story every once in a while, because it was just crazy. Like, I met him he was like, I knew you reminded me of somebody. You got the same energy as Adam, but I couldn't place it. I was like, oh man, that's wild, man. That's a story I like to tell.
That's hilarious. And it's yeah, like if you wrote that as a screenplay, like as part of a screenplay, they would say, oh, that's unrealistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Life is stranger than fiction that way. Do y'all get a lot of conventions in Dallas?
I would say, yeah, we have a decent amount of conventions. We have I think Acon happened down here a while back. They have DreamHack Dallas, which is they used to have it in Austin, I think, and then they moved it over here to like the K Bailey Hutchinson area to the and that place was great. They have like one of my favorite things is that they have the BYOC, bring your own computer or console or whatnot, and which is like a little roped off area where you like pay a little extra money and they give you a spot to chill at, and you put your computer and your monitor and all your peripherals there. I mean, like you can come in there and play video games. You just walk out, you have like your tag on and everything. The thing about it is that at a convention, at a thing like a fighting game convention, because that was like, it's not really a fighting game thing, it's a video game thing in general. But the thing about it is that it's kind of hard to put a price on having a designated place to sit down. You know, when you've been walking around and you've been getting your steps in and you look at your step counter, it says like 8,000, you're ready to just like take a load off. And the BYOC is the place to go because you've got like a designated spot. You sit down, play games for a little bit, sip on some coffee for a hot minute, and you'd be like, my legs have recovered and I'm ready to walk around again. Because believe me, you'd be walking around, you're just like, oh my gosh. And before you know it, the wear and tear on your legs is like crazy. You're like, oh God, please, I need somewhere to sit down. All the seats are taken because everybody's playing Tekken, Street Fighter, DNF Duel, whatever. You're like, oh God, my legs are about to give out. The BYOC, man, that's a lifesaver. But yeah, we have a decent amount of conventions and stuff here in Dallas. And if you talk about like Texas as a whole, I mean, Anime Matsuri is another thing. Oh, we have an Anime Dallas here too. But Anime Matsuri is over in Houston. And Houston's only 3 hours away. It's a 3-hour drive. In a few hours, you're there and you're ready to party, man. So there's Houston. Austin is about 3 to 4 hours away. So in like the area, like 3 to 4 hours away, is a completely different city with a completely different cadre of conventions that happens there. So I would say that, yeah, down here in DFW is good. But if you're talking about just the general area, even of like Texas, like here around the area, 3 to 4 hours, you're good, man. Like there's a lot going on. The only bad experience I've ever had, I can't even say that I had a bad experience at it, but it was like at the tail end, I caught COVID. So it was kind of like I'm trying to leave and I didn't even know what was wrong with me. I'm like trying to leave and I'm like, oh God, what's wrong with me? And I'm sitting down, I'm laying down on the ground, and like some of the security people are like, yo, man, are you okay? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry. It was rough, man.
Question number 6. If you could create a new holiday, what would it commemorate?
This is going to sound really corny, but as a fighting game player, there's a particular archetype of characters I like to play. They're called grapplers. They get a lot of flack because they do so much damage, just by grabbing people, which I think is amazingly cool. The holiday, I actually said it like a year or two ago. When you do like a throw move in Street Fighter, you do you hit the stick or you go on the D-pad 360, like a full revolution around the pad 360. If you do it twice, it's a 720. So I call it a Grappler Day, and it's on July 20th, 720, Grappler Day. So
I love it.
yeah.
I love it. So how would you celebrate?
I would say that everybody pick a grappler character. Show some love to those grappler characters. And Shermie and King of Fighters 15. Matter of fact, Shermie, Orochi Yashiro, Astaroth and Soul Calibur, Grappler and DNF Duel, Zangief and Street Fighter. Listen, man, go to your nearest grappler. Put your hand on their shoulder, but don't let it rest there for too long because they will grab you. Aggressively hug your friends. You know what I mean? Like as a grappler, it's your duty to aggressively hug your friends and let them know how you really feel about them by hitting that 720 on 720. You know what I mean? Like that would be the new holiday, Grappler Day.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. Any parting words or anything?
Yeah, I would have to say, man, thanks a lot for inviting me, bro. It meant a lot for you to ask me to come to be here. because it's like when it's like a validation, right? Like it's like a validation, like, yo, man, like somebody thinks I have enough value to be on their show. Like that's awesome. So I appreciate that, man. Just like everybody, like I said, like we were talking about earlier, always give yourself the space to fail. Just remember that failure is not the end. That's just a one step. And you might think it's a misstep, but it's a step towards proficiency. And always appreciate the people that are in your life, right now. Whether you because things are rough. Things can be rough. And I know people get into arguments and stuff like that, but never let that be something that like separates you from somebody. You know what I mean? Like it's important to focus on the love that you have with your friends, your family, your loved ones. Always remember that, our time is limited and we should be spending our time like making life better for the people around us. But once again, Demond, I really appreciate you letting me come on here and just chat with you for a little bit. Like this was really fun. I mean, I loved every second.
Whether it's your first time or this time, thank you for joining us for the 6 questions. And if you like the show, tell the world. Please jump on your podcast app, leave a 5-star review, and tell your friends. That's the best way to grow the show, and more can join the conversation. Next week, we are talking puppies, D&D, and canceled manga with the co-host of the podcast Shonen Flop, David Weinberger. So, until next time, see it, hear it, speak it,